going on, guys? Welcome back. Over here at the property, putting out some, I don't know, this is kind of like a feed mineral block for the deer. On another note, the reason I have to replenish this already, at one point I think I showed you guys I had a huge trophy rock right here. You can see the deer still looking up the dirt. I've been getting pictures like crazy. But we had some delinquent teenage kids take my mineral rock, and we also got photos of them. I had to raise my camera high enough so kids can't reach it without having to climb the tree a little bit. Cut the straps of my camera, chucked it in the brush, and then took my freaking mineral rock. So I got a new one. We're gonna try this out. It's the Purina Antler Max. Never used it before, don't know anything about it, but it's kind of like a feed mineral mix. So we're gonna do that, and then we got some deer corn with some berries in it. It's called White Gold Berry Blast. I've used this stuff before. It's pretty good, and the deer freaking love it. Whenever I put the stuff out, they completely wipe it out like crazy. So we're gonna get to putting this out, and then we're gonna get on to another topic. We like to feed our coons around here.
This is legal in Ohio.
Yeah, in the state of Ohio, you can feed, hunt, overfeed, and everything all year round.
Nice.
I had mentioned a little bit ago how one of my mineral rocks went missing. Well, let me go into detail on that. I did actually get some pictures of some teenage kids back here, and it wasn't like a one-time thing. I'd gotten back here pictures of them multiple times, sometimes in the winter, a couple times early spring, and then a couple times about a week ago. It didn't really bother me much the first couple times, even though it was in deer season and we were coming out to hunt, and there's tracks all over the woods because, you know, we've got a lot of deer here. We still saw tons of deer. It wasn't like it ruined our hunt. The second time I got pictures of them, I'm like, okay, they came back again. This is getting kind of annoying because they must just come back here pretty regularly then. And then I got more pictures of them, and this is just when I catch them in front of this one particular spot walking around, you know, and the closest houses are what, 250, 300 yards away maybe. And so I'm like, okay, so clearly they're walking around through the woods to get back here. I get pictures of them again a couple days ago, and then I get pictures of just the sky in the brush, and I'm like, what the heck? And so I got pictures of these same kids back here again. I'm guessing these kids are between 13 and 15, like in that range. I don't know how old they are, but they're younger. And so I'm like, okay, this just isn't cool. Like at first I was just kind of like, okay, it's annoying. But like took a mineral rock, which I'm gonna, to their defense, I'm guessing they thought it was like, because it's all crystallized, it was a Himalaya salt, you know, like trophy rock. They probably thought, oh, this is cool, like it could be worth some money, like this big rock with all these shiny diamond looking things on it, even though it's just salt. Maybe they thought it was something cool and they swiped it thinking, you know, we're gonna see what this is worth. The thing that I didn't like about it is they knew what they were doing was wrong, because when they came up to the camera, you got a picture of them, and you got a picture of one of them with their hands like this, like blocking the camera, and then you got one with a picture, you can see their hand in like a knife, and then my straps are cut, my camera is pitched in the brush, and my trophy rock was gone. You know, like I said, they're kids, but so, you know, we put out a post into some community group for the small town that we're in, whatever, and just like, hey, looking for parents, you know, we just want to find out whose kids these are so we can let the parents know that we don't want their kids in our property. We hunt there, we've got a big river on there, I don't want kids falling in that and then us getting in trouble. I don't want, you know, some kid cutting straps on my tree stand and then I come back in season not expecting that, I get halfway up, the ladder falls back on me, I break my back, you know, whatever, like something stupid when the property is very heavily posted. And it could be an easy thing like, hey, by the way, the guy that owns the property back here, he doesn't want you guys back there, don't go back there anymore. You know, it could be that simple. I was getting tons of people messaging me that live in the area, and they were like, hey, we know whose kids those are. They're not going to cooperate with you. It's a pretty rough household, and their parents just kind of let them go haywire and do whatever the heck they want. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm thinking maybe it's just one person that has it out for them. Like, I'm still going to wait until, you know, somebody gives me their contact info or they contact me. And then, you know, we get another person that calls us, you know, about the post, and they're like, hey, you know, we know who those kids are. Totally different person. You know, just so you know, they're probably not going to reach out to you, and their kids are freaking berserk, and their parents just let them do whatever they want, and they're always defending their bad actions, so it's probably not going to go over well. I wouldn't recommend going to their house and confronting them about it. Apparently the household is pretty rough. There's a lot of stuff going on that they got into detail on that I'm not going to get into detail on. And then I had a third person message and say, hey, I know what family you're talking about. I know what house they live in, you know, based on what you were telling me about the property and where they're back in your woods and whatever. And I'm like, okay. They're like, probably not the best household to try to go up to the door and confront about, hey, I don't like what you're doing in my property, because it might not go over so well. I mean, they can be kind of rough. Okay, well, they're not getting a hold of me. I don't have any of their contact info. And all three of those people said, I'd probably just contact the police department and have them knock on the door and say, hey, you know, here's a friendly reminder or request. The neighbor's requesting that you don't let your kids go back in his property. And they were cutting straps on cameras. They, you know, swiped a mineral rock. You know, they chucked his camera in the brush. And, you know, like, it was just unnecessary stuff. Cut the straps on it and all that. I think I already mentioned that a few times. If I had 3 people in a row that live in this town going, I would not, you know, go knock on their door. It's not going to go over well. Apparently, the grandmother lives there of these kids. Her kids live there. Their kids, like, apparently it's like berserk crazy over there, and there's all kinds of stuff going on all the time. And so I called the police department. I said, hey, I don't want any issues, but I got some people that have their kids on my property all the time, and their parents might not have any idea, but if you could just let them know, like, hey, the guy said that straps were cut on his cameras, he had some stuff go missing, he'd just prefer that you guys just, you know, keep your kids off his property. Let him know that he does not want people back there, you know, because he just doesn't want any issues. I'm like, I'm not worried about a $20 mineral rock, and I'm not worried about a $5 strap for my camera. Like, it's not a big deal, but I don't want any further issues, you know, with tree stands having straps cut or whatever else, and then it could harm me or my wife. He's like, no, I understand. I'll go knock on the door and let him know. Moral of the story, I don't like people on my property that aren't invited, and I heavily post my property. And like, you can see the signs all over from their backyard. Like, it's like every 10 trees maybe there's a sign. Like, you can see them driving down the road. You can just see signs all along the back of all these houses, just because, you know, like, we hunt here, we're trying to have a good time, trying to manage the property. I don't want people back in my property, especially when I have no idea when they're going to be back there, what they're doing, damaging property. Just not cool. If you guys have kids that are on other people's property doing whatever the heck they want, and people are asking you to have them not be over there, I would just suggest you listen to them. I mean, if you bought the ground, then you'd probably be able to relate. Maybe you do own ground, you just don't care. Everybody has a different standard on how they want their property treated. Just keep that in mind, because it can be very frustrating. But anyways, let's get over and show you our clover plots. Okay, so here's a trail coming out right here. This is actually pretty heavy. It's kind of nice in the spring. You got this nice soft soil. You can see all the fresh tracks coming and going. But here's one of our new clover plots. This is one of the first ones that we put in this year, and we planted some jumbo white ladino, and it's coming up pretty nice. It just started sprouting a couple of days ago, and then it just really took off. A couple of days is in like over a week ago, but it started sprouting, coming up real nice. We had to mow it off once already, just to kind of hopefully get most of the competing weeds off and grass, so that the clover can kind of take over. But this is the first one. This is its first season, of course. One little bare spot where it held a little bit of water for about a week, but other than that, I think it's going to take off pretty darn good. Super excited to see how it turns out in the deer season. We got a tree stand right up there in the corner. You can access from back behind. This is actually pretty darn close to the truck parking. We might be maybe 100 yards away, probably not even that. Pretty productive spot though. And so here is clover plot number 2. It's kind of a nice little hidden spot you're going back into here, but you've got lots of nice growth. The deer, I guarantee you, are already working away on mowing this down. There's a lot of tracks throughout here, but you can see this one's growing very nicely. The ground is much more drained up here. Gets a decent amount of sunlight, some shade, some sun, mostly sunny. Midday, it's getting close to 5:30, 6 o'clock in the afternoon now, so starting to shade out a little bit, but clearly it's getting enough because it's growing. People ask about hinge cutting and purposes of it and all this other stuff. There's a lot of good uses of it. One of the uses I used it for in this situation was sunlight. If the trees on the southwest side of this food plot were not cut like this and hinge cut all the way down to give this decent amount of sunlight, this plot probably would not have even germinated up to this point and grown this much. It's just super crucial to make sure clover has plenty of sunlight. Ladina clover is considered to be somewhat shade tolerant, but not super shade tolerant. So, you know, it doesn't need to have like 15 hours of sunlight, you know, like crazy amounts of sunlight. This can pretty much survive with, like, I think they said like 6 to 10 hours a day. So, I mean, it definitely gets at least that. Pretty happy with how it's growing so far. You can see all the tracks all throughout here. I mean, it's pretty tore up, but I got all these trees, like I said, on the southwest side, all hinge cut over. You can see some more of that cutting here. I mean, I really laid these trees down along this edge, and this plot does wrap all the way around over here, and it goes all the way down to where it dead ends up against a river down there. Pretty nice little feeding strip that I would call it down through here. A couple little licking branches right there, a couple little licking branches throughout here that I left nice and low. Other than that though, it's pretty nicely open and provide a decent amount of food hopefully once it fully establishes. And another little thing my buddy just pointed out here is the hinge cuts are already, not only are they alive, look at the crown of leaves growing up, and these things were completely dormant when I cut them. And look at all the shoots growing on the hinge cuts here. All these new shoots and new branches that are going to be growing along the tops of this that are nice and low. The deer can get to them and nibble them off if they want. They can get the buds in the winter, in the dormant months, and in the spring. And then when these things keep producing leaves, for the species that they will consume, this is going to produce not only lots of food they can get to right there, but new growth on the trunk, which will produce tons more food as well. And really just creates so much more for the deer to enjoy. We're going to show you this first before we bury all these nice fresh tracks. Look at all these tracks. This is crazy. Yeah, we are going to be giving away a deer hunt on this property this upcoming deer season, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. We're hoping to have the new website launched by June 1st, and then from that point until whenever it ends, we're going to release the final results, like the final information you guys need to know once it goes live. But pretty much you guys will be able to buy, you know, hats and shirts and hoodies and camo gear and whatever else from our website, and it'll get you entries to win a hunt. Here, Joshua, how many deer do we have here?
Way too many.
We got a lot of deer.
Every time I've sat here, I've seen at least 10.
You sat out here a total of 6 hunts, I think, with us total. You came out with me once in October, twice in October, and like 4 times late season, right?
No,
3 times late season.
Well, I came out once I got a license. My second time is when I killed one.
Yeah. But your first hunt, you got a shot on one. You just grazed it. Yep. Yeah. First hunt, you had deer freaking come out 25 yards.
Yeah.
And his bow is super fine-tuned. He's like, it's got to be exact yardage. Tell me. I was like, 25. He shoots. He's like, it was like 28. Oh, that makes a difference. He's like, just enough.
Shooting really heavy arrows.
Yeah.
But the deer, like, I shot while it was halfway stepping, like we didn't warn it, run at it or anything, and the deer dropped like, what was it on the video? It was like
30 inches. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was insane.
Because we froze the frame, we looked at where your arrow hit and where it would have hit if the deer hadn't ducked, and he basically would have freaking honey punched it. It would have been right in the heart. It would have been crazy. All that being said, stay tuned. We're going to be giving away a hunt. Anyways, here's another clover plot that we planted. This one's not doing so hot. Kind of a low spot, and this is why I planted so many. He's like, dude, you planted like every opening here. I was like, well, not every opening, but most of them, because I wanted to find out which spots produce food the first year, like which spots have good enough soil that stays well drained, and so I know where to optimize for next year. Like if I need to open up that one spot that you're talking about, Joshua, that's way better. He's like, this spot is growing some good clover quick compared to these other spots. Then I'd rather expand that one spot out more if the soil's well drained, it produces good. I'd rather make one spot that's a little better if I know it's good, versus like plant one food plot here this year, be like, oh, that didn't turn out. Then one in a different spot and be like, no, that didn't turn out. And then one is like, oh, finally got a good spot, and it's 3 years in, and I, end up wasting a bunch of time. So I planted clover in 3 different locations to see which spot produces the best, and then optimize from there and plant accordingly. Like if this doesn't handle clover well, it might handle brassica great, because brassica can handle a lot of moisture or drought. So maybe this is a spot that clover's not the spot. Here it's got to be brassica, turnips, or whatever. So live and learn. But I'll show you the next plot over here. And here's my last spot right here. You can see that clover coming in very, very nicely. Again, this is white clover, ladino. And this is a long, windy trail Gets plenty of sunlight because it's opened up east to west is how the trees were cleared in this particular spot on this trail. So it gets very, very, very good sunlight pretty much most of the day, which is not a bad thing, even though it's fairly shade tolerant species of clover. More sunlight's not a bad thing for it as well, because it'll still do awesome. But yeah, just a couple looking branches throughout the edge of the trail, give the bucks places to make scrapes along this, I call it like a feeding path, a feeding trail, so you can hunt it and the bucks can work it and deer can work it, and it doesn't feel so vast and wide open. But probably a total stretch where it wraps around the corner from down there all the way back over here, maybe an 80-yard long strip of clover. So hopefully it all goes well and grows good and we don't have any issues with it dying out. What do you think the odds are it goes good?
Good odds.
Yeah, okay. Well, I hope so. I mean, it sprouted up, so as long as we can keep it alive, then we should be in pretty good shape. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that video. Stay tuned for the hunt giveaway coming up soon. We're hoping to launch it June 1st. Stay tuned, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the videos, and we will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.